The NFL regular season is off and running with a last-second win by the Kansas City Chiefs over the Baltimore Ravens. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is here to talk about it all right now. With you, as always, Jeffri Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. Isaiah likely said after the game, this is the worst game the Ravens will play all year. Really? Are the Ravens really a threat to the Kansas City Chiefs, or are they a team that's way better than them, as likely seems to think? Will Lamar Jackson be a good enough passer to win it all ever in his career? Is the Chiefs' offense explosive enough now to be a three-time Super Bowl champion? Has Rashee Rice ascended to the number one target role for the Kansas City Chiefs? What does just 3 catches mean for Travis Kelce? How excited should Chiefs fans be about Xavier Worthy after his performance in the opener? Will Chris Jones challenge for Defensive Player of the Year? What is the defense of the Kansas City Chiefs after giving up 452 yards? We talk about it right now here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeffri Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeffri Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is the sports columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance, covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff as well. Motorcycle, boat, ATV, you name it. Get with Dave and he'll have you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call, visit them online, or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave. He'll give you peace of mind today for the things in your life most important to you. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeffri Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. The Chiefs are winners. I mean, I don't know. Isaiah likely doesn't seem to think so. A lot of people can make a case. They won by a toe. Baltimore would have gone for 2. Would they have gotten it? Let's start right there, Jeff. Just overall, what's your takeaway? Great win for the Kansas City Chiefs, or lucky to survive?
I don't know if I'd put it that way. I don't know if it was a great win. I think we all picked the Chiefs to win, so it probably wasn't a surprise.
Somebody got the score, right? I don't remember who it was. But.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you were probably sweating it out on that toe tap there. But, yeah, I mean, it was a good win. I think for me the takeaway was if the Baltimore Ravens want to beat the Chiefs at some point, they're going to have to be able to make those clutch plays. And that's been a consistent theme throughout these games. And the Chiefs are exceptional at doing that. That's a big reason why they've won 3 championships in 5 years, because they know how to make those plays when they matter most. And to me, I'm not saying the Ravens would have won the game, but it certainly felt like they had opportunities to do some things. And it just, once again, it just didn't happen for them.
I agree wholeheartedly with everything Jeff said. I think the question becomes, though, Sam, is like when it's over and over again that the Ravens could have, if they just made one more play, if they just did this, if at the end of the day you keep seeing that over and over again, is that a sign that one team's just better than the other?
I think it's a sign that one quarterback handles these situations better than the other. I mean, I thought last night you saw the separation between a 2-time regular season MVP winner and a 3-time Super Bowl MVP winner. I mean, you just backtrack what Patrick Mahomes did just last year alone. I mean, fourth quarter comeback against the Bills, have to beat the Ravens with a third down play to Marquez Valdez-Scantling, of all receivers. And then you've got a game-tying drive against the 49ers, a game-winning drive in overtime. Those opportunities were there for Lamar Jackson last night. And I realize we probably don't want to make a huge deal out of one game, but this is why one quarterback has all the success in the playoffs and one quarterback has all the success in the regular season and doesn't come up in these big games. Lamar Jackson, everyone's going to talk about the Isaiah Likely play last night, and I get it. Yeah. He's out by a toe. They lost the game in the preceding 30 seconds.
Yeah.
He had Zay Flowers wide open on second down. He had Isaiah Likely wide open on first down. Both of them, if you go back and look at it, Brian Cook screws up both coverages on those plays where he kind of gets lost watching Lamar Jackson scramble and loses sight of his receiver. And both times Lamar Jackson whiffs on it. And preceding that, if you look at after they complete the longest pass of the night to Rashad Bateman, because the Chiefs didn't allow deep passes until that Bateman pass in the 2-minute drill, Lamar Jackson is running down the field, shrugging his shoulders to the sideline like, what next? What do you want next here? And it's one quarterback who the way I phrased it in my column last night is I thought two quarterbacks were really nervous last night. The one who was in the game and the one whose heart rate is proven to spike by the monitor he wears when he's on the sideline watching. Patrick Mahomes is cool as can be, calm as can be when he's in the game. I thought Lamar Jackson just looked like a mess in those last 30 seconds. And by the way, in the last play, he has Likely open the whole route. Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquil will bust that coverage too. He's got him open on the whole route, doesn't throw it until late. That's why it's a tight throw. And I think the fact that he's out by a toe is overshadowing the way Lamar Jackson blew this game for the previous 30 seconds.
I mean, I don't know that I can. Listen, you're right on all accounts. I mean, he did miss throws, and the Zay Jones one was, or Zay Flowers one was obviously the biggest one there. But that's the game, right? Like I think there's
his game.
It's his game, but also they're not in that game without his legs, right? Like I do think that the Baltimore Ravens.
He's a great quarterback. Yeah.
Can they beat the Chiefs? Yes. Is he the best passer in the league? No. Is he a dynamic, great player? Yes. I mean, what I saw from the Baltimore Ravens, Jeff, is, and I don't buy what Isaiah Likely said, where this is the worst game they're going to play all year. I mean, okay, I guess. I mean, history doesn't say that. You come up on the losing end of the Chiefs all the time, but I think the Ravens are really good. Like I think there's an element of, when your team wins, it's a great win, or any success is a great win, but any failure is a disaster by your team, and credit isn't given to the other team. John Harbaugh can coach. Lamar Jackson is a 2-time MVP. Sam, I agree with everything you say about him as a passer. He is limited as a passer, but what I liked about what Baltimore did was they're not trying to make him the best passer. They're living with the fact that he runs. He's effective that way. They stayed within themselves, something that other teams that have to run the ball won't do. They didn't get away from the fact that they wanted to run the ball with Lamar Jackson. I don't know. I don't buy what Likely's saying, but this team was really good. Any way you can beat the Baltimore Ravens is a quality win.
Well, sorry, Jeff, to let me cut in there for a second, because I'd like to phrase it to Jeff like this. Last year, Jeff, you were as hard as anybody. We were all hard on the Ravens' game plan last year in the AFC Championship game, but you were harder than anybody on what the Ravens did and thought that cost the Ravens the game.
Yeah.
If Likely's right, like, what are the Ravens pointing to? They ran the ball last night. They ran the ball with Derrick Henry. Lamar Jackson, even on passing dropbacks, their primary options seem to be, Lamar, you go make a play and scramble. I don't know that, like, what game plan did the Ravens whiff on last night?
Well, I think two things, and it's little stuff, right? It's burning 2 timeouts early in the second half that you could have used late in the game. That's a coaching thing. But I feel like one of the more confounding things for me watching this game was they didn't realize until 2.5 quarters into it that Isaiah Likely was their best offensive weapon. Like, it took them that long to realize, okay, outside of Zay Flowers and Derrick Henry, who should we be trying to get the football to? And then the game turned once they started to go to that. And to me, it's almost like the Chiefs last year, where they felt like they had all these players they could utilize. And the Ravens, I don't know what Rashad Bateman's doing out there. I don't know what Nelson Aguilar brings out there, but they were not a part of this game plan. And so I think I agree with what Soren's saying. That last possession for Lamar, who will focus on that, and he's got to make those throws. That's why you get paid the big money. That's why you win the MVPs and make those kind of plays. But it just feels like every time this team plays the Chiefs, and it's why I picked the Chiefs in this game, they go through these periods where they just don't know what they're trying to do, what they're trying to be, and it ends up costing them in the end.
I think that's an interesting point. By the way, we're proudly brought to you by our friends at David Starnes Allstate Insurance, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest with David Starnes Allstate. It's not just about fender benders. Beyond traditional safeguards, you can enjoy perks like roadside assistance for unexpected breakdowns, transportation expense coverage when your car is in the shop, auto replacement protection to keep you on the road in style, and much, much more. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. That's 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. We're also brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems, they've been making them disappear since 1994. Get your seal coating done now before the weather turns cold. Weekends are booking up fast with free consultations, no commissions, and in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lots. I like the part you said, Jeff, about the Chiefs not finding their identity, right? Like, isn't that just a little bit of it's week one, right? You don't know, you don't have 5 games tape on them. You know, I think this is, you're not going to be hitting on all cylinders, are you? When you come out in week one, you don't know. Like I think it was Steve Spagnuolo that said, you're kind of in a scramble all game. Like we have what we think they're going to do, but we have to figure it all out. It's a figure it out game, I think is how he put it. Is it that, you know, they were both thrown into the fire, had to react on the fly, and one team got the better of it?
Yeah. And I think even though the Ravens put up a lot of yards and Lamar had, 250 yards passing, 100 yards rushing, I thought Spagnuolo did a really good job of defending them. There was long stretches of that game where the Ravens weren't doing anything except throwing the football towards the sidelines and hoping somebody could break a tackle or Lamar just scrambling around. And so I thought going into this game that they would struggle being able to deal with the run game and that they would also struggle with play action. And now, granted, they had huge offensive line issues. I mean, Chris Jones was living in the backfield in the first half, and that had to change a lot of what you do. But again, I feel like Spagnuolo really has a very deep, a great feel for how to get in Lamar Jackson's head, how to get into the head of their coordinator, Todd Monken, and he's just one step ahead of them most of the time. Now, the Ravens rallied and made some plays when it was just, okay, let's get down the field as fast as possible. But again, I just felt like, what are the Ravens doing offensively for about 2 quarters there?
Yeah. Interesting, Sam. Did you, when you look at what the Ravens did, are they a real threat to the Kansas City Chiefs? Like if you say, okay, playoffs roll around, think this is a threat? Or, because listen, both teams, I get where Isaiah Likely comes from. You have to look at things from your lens when you're a player. But I know the Kansas City Chiefs are saying, Isaiah Pacheco missed a catch on a wheel route that could have been, with one move after the catch, he's in the end zone. There was another drop. I'm forgetting. Somebody else had
Juju Smith-Schuster at the goal line.
Yeah, at the goal line. I mean, they're clearly looking at that saying, hey, we catch those. We're not even talking about this final drive because we put them away. I mean, is Baltimore a legit threat? How do you view this coming away?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're a legit threat, but the absurdity of Isaiah Likely's comment is like, did we just forget last year when this Chiefs team stumbled through the regular season and still found it in January? Like, of course teams are different in the playoffs, but like for anyone to look at the Chiefs and say, man, wait till you wake up to January football and see what that's about, and wait till you see what we bring in January. Like, this is the team, and this is a reason why the Chiefs won last night. To Jeff's point, they make the winning plays at the end of the game. They've consistently done it to the Ravens over the last 7 months. And so, but I don't buy this that the Ravens botched this game last night. I mean, first of all, they ran 74 plays last night. The Chiefs only ran 50. To your point, Soren, I mean, the Chiefs botched red zone opportunities twice in that game. I mean, every team after a football game, especially good teams, can point and nitpick at things and say, here's where it went wrong. To Jeff's point, I mean, the timeouts that cost them an extra play at the end of that game. But when it comes down to it, I thought they had an equal number of that, and the game's in Lamar Jackson's hands at the end of the game. And by the way, the game was a little bit in Patrick Mahomes' hands when it's just a heads-up play to catch a football to rob the Ravens of one last play. If Patrick Mahomes doesn't complete a pass to himself, the Ravens have one more play to execute at the end of the game. And I just think we constantly
maybe actually, because it actually like 30 seconds. They can have 5-6 more plays.
Well, it would have been fourth down though, right?
Yeah, but the clock
Yeah.
the clock would have stopped.
Yeah.
Right. But
Ran all the way down to the 2.
I'm saying the Ravens got stopped last night on third down. They had one play left. It would have been fourth down.
I see. Well, if it plays out exactly.
They were facing a fourth down. But my point is, it's a quarterback that's constantly thinking. We saw in last year's Super Bowl the coin toss. He even knew the strategy of a coin toss. And like the Ravens are the team that has to change this. It's not about the way that, the Chiefs escaped this game or something of that sort. If they're constantly escaping these types of games, there is a trend here and there is a reason for it. And that's where the Ravens need to look internally, is how they executed down the stretch.
Yeah. Well, and I'd say this. I'm sorry. I would say this too, as far as, yes, they're a threat, but there's a reason why in the pecking order of threats in the AFC, it's the Bengals and the Bills, and then it's them. And maybe even this year, if Aaron Rodgers is healthy and Aaron Rodgers of old, probably the Jets, because those quarterbacks, you've seen them make those kinds of plays in those moments. Like Josh Allen is making that throw to Zay Flowers 10 times out of 10 times. Joe Burrow's making that throw 10 out of 10 times. And it's just, again, I don't want to belabor the point, but it just feels as if, this team is missing something in those moments.
By the way, we're brought to you by Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyer, serving KC for more than 40 years. Voted KC's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their clients. Don't wait. Get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT, 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one. It should not be based solely upon advertisements. Jeff, I like what you said there about Baltimore. I think all of us agree. These are two good teams, right? Baltimore is a threat. A couple plays don't get made. They outgained the Chiefs by almost 100 yards in this game. But a 2-point conversion. We saw John Harbaugh's holding up 2. They're going to go for 2. If that toe is that much further back and it's a touchdown, they're going to line up with Lamar Jackson a couple yards away from winning that game. And I don't like the Chiefs' chances of stopping that. I think if that toe is inbounds, the Ravens win this game. I think Lamar Jackson is that threat. They didn't have the answer for him. I think he's the worst guy you want to see in a 2-point attempt. This is all different. We're talking about this completely differently. If his toe, in my opinion, if his toe is 2 inches back, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Sam even looked down from his seat in the press box. They give those star guys really good seats. They gotta look up. He said they're going for 2, and everybody next to me thought that even before the touchdown was, I think a couple plays before it was. There's no way they
got the ball. There's no way they're doing anything going for
overtime. There's no way it's going. So look, but again, it's a moot point, right? Because they didn't get there, and you have to put yourself in those positions. I thought there were so many little things throughout the course of that game that the Chiefs were really good at, and the Ravens were not good at. I mean, 5 illegal formation penalties. I don't know if I've ever seen a game where that happens. And not one involved Jawan Taylor. that was crazy.
But didn't 3 of them come on the opening drive, a drive that the Ravens overcame all of that? That's what was, I think, scary if you're a Chiefs fan.
That was noteworthy.
We'll talk about the defense in a minute.
Yeah.
But three penalties, that's supposed, a particular team that wants to run the ball, that is supposed to choke the life out of them, and it didn't happen.
It didn't happen. And also, I thought twice the Chiefs had the ball inside the 15-yard line and could only get field goals out of it. I mean, I think someone made the comment about that. That to me was, now they converted one later. But I thought, man, is this offense going to have the same issues as last year where you get inside the red zone and it's just like, okay, what are we doing with the football? And so, I think you're right. I think the Ravens had a great chance to win, but just the way these games play out, they probably would have blown it.
Yeah. I mean, they probably would have. And that comes down to the question, is Lamar Jackson a good enough passer to win? I think you're right, Sam. What else did the Ravens want to do? They really kind of had the game they want, and I think it speaks to the limitations of the run game, right? I don't know that they got Derrick Henry, the Chiefs ganged up on him, but they didn't have the answer for Lamar Jackson, and Lamar Jackson hurt them. But this is what, I think you and I talked about it on the radio show. If Derrick Henry comes out and has a great day, 150 yards, fine. He didn't. If Lamar Jackson has 40-something and Derrick Henry has 100-something, maybe that's a little bit more what people wanted to see, but it takes more than 450 yards in this game to beat the Chiefs. If you have 150 yards on the ground, that's a great day, and you're still only a third of the way to the yards you need to win. And I think that's where Baltimore as a city and as a fan base missed the point on last year's game. Oh, how do we get away from the running? Well, I get it. It was effective, but you can't just run your way to a victory, not against championship caliber teams. You're going to have to make plays in the passing game. And I think that's the question. Lamar Jackson improved a lot as a passer, won a second MVP, but is he ever going to be good enough as a passer to make the plays in the games that really count?
When you're ahead, I mean, the problem is both for the Ravens, both games that they played the Chiefs, they've fallen behind by the second quarter and trailed for the remainder of the game. And those are the situations that are putting Lamar Jackson in this uncomfortable position of, having to pass the ball. That's why I mentioned the fact that, when you look at what the Ravens did, Lamar Jackson ran the ball he carried the ball more last night than he did in any single game last year. Like, the Ravens do not want Lamar Jackson carrying the ball 16 times over 17 weeks. That is not a player who's going to hold up over the course of the season. They threw everything at this game. Like, they decided last night that it's worth it. They thought this game, and we all talked about it on Tuesday's podcast. This was a big game for the Ravens, if nothing else than for their psyche. I mean, they can afford to go 0-1. The question is how they'll rebound to losing against the Chiefs and whether or not that matters if Isaiah Likely is right and they face him again in the postseason. And I've never really thought for a Patrick Mahomes team that the first halves are as important as they are when they play this team, because it completely changes the way that Baltimore is able to execute its offense. Their wide receivers last night had only one wide receiver had a catch until Rashad Bateman caught a ball with 3 minutes to go in the third quarter. And it was Zay Flowers with 37 yards on 6 catches. Like, I know we talked a lot about the Chiefs cornerbacks, and they're going to have a much bigger test in week 2 than they had in week 1. But this was not a passing game that gave the Chiefs fits. It was a passing game that gave Nick Bolton fits in coverage.
Yeah. That was, he had it, not his best day. And I think they did expose their weaknesses. And again, I come back to John Harbaugh can coach. Like, the Baltimore Ravens do a lot of things right, and they're going to be tough on a lot of people. So I think, this wasn't perfect, but Andy Reid said it after the game. This is a heavyweight fight, and 2 championship fighters get out there. You got to have a chin because you're going to get hit, right? Like the old days of Pernell Whitaker. I'm really dating myself with that one. Roy Jones Jr., Floyd Mayweather, the guys that are just incredible defensive fighters that never take a punch. That's not how it works in the NFL. You have to take a punch along the way and be able to get back up and keep going. And the Ravens took a number of punches, delivered a number of punches. I think that's just how this game was. Jeff, is this first? Let me tell you, by the way, Restore Hyper Wellness, proud to bring you the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Feel your best every day with Restore Hyper Wellness. Cutting edge treatments like IV therapy, cryotherapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, NAD, IM shots, and a variety of skin health services designed to help you recover. Like the pros, boost energy, reduce stress, enhance well-being, perfect for athletes, busy professionals, and anyone looking to improve health. Personalized wellness plans are tailored to your specific needs. And first-time IV therapy is just $99 when you mention my name, Petro. That's right. Mention Petro, and your first IV therapy is just $99. Visit Restore Hyper Wellness in Zona Rosa or Hawthorne Plaza at 119th and Row. Enhance yourself. Embrace a healthier and happier you. Jeff, is this offense now explosive enough? Is it become, again, one of the top offenses in football of what you saw last night?
You know what? To me, it was, well, here's what I saw. I saw a team that is going to rely a lot on Rashee Rice. I thought they were more consistent and efficient. I didn't see a big play offense like down the field passing. I saw an offense that knew what it wanted to do and where it wanted to go with the football, which to me is what great offenses do. And I'll say this, it was the same thing with Derrick Henry and the Ravens. They wanted to run Derrick Henry, and the Chiefs said, we're not letting you do that. The Chiefs want to throw the football down the field. You're not going to be able to do that. But they understand that, like, Rashee Rice looked phenomenal. They knew how to mix in Xavier Worthy. Travis Kelce was surprisingly not really part of the game plan, or didn't really factor into the game plan the way you would expect. And they ran the football. So I thought the play calling was tremendous at times. They really knew where they wanted to hit the Ravens. I love the fact that they knew who they wanted to attack. And you saw, I think it was Zach Harrison, number 40 for the Ravens. I think that's his name. And they just really went after him. And they went after Roquan Smith early, working the inside. They attacked the middle of the field continually, and the Ravens acted like the middle of the field was off limits to them. They had no kind of game planning to create plays there. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a work in progress, and we'll see how all these moving parts come together when Hollywood Brown comes back. But I thought it was very impressive what they did.
Sam, and when Patrick Mahomes went right to it in post game as well about, hey, when we get him back, we're really going to see everything. Xavier Worthy looked really explosive, right? I mean, that, he looked like a real play. This wasn't just a guy who, has some nice, tape from his college days. He looked really impressive, added an element of speed, explosive enough now. And what are they when they do get Hollywood Brown back?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the Chiefs' offense was terrific last night. And, I mean, we got to keep in mind the Ravens led the NFL in scoring defense a year ago. They were third in yards per play given up. The Chiefs averaged 7.1 yards per play last night. That was better than all but one game they played last year against that Ravens defense. So I don't know what more you could have wanted to see from the Chiefs defense, because I thought it was our offense, because I thought it was not only a good game, but a really good indicator of what potentially could be to come. You mentioned Xavier Worthy. The Ravens seemed extremely concerned about Xavier Worthy, other than leaving him wide open accidentally on a busted cover two. Yeah. The rest of the game, they were defending Xavier Worthy deep. And I do think that's why Rashee Rice had a lot of openings. I think Travis Kelce is also why Rashee Rice had a lot of openings. Rashee Rice is just a different player on September 5th this year than he was September 5th a year ago. It's not just that he knows the playbook better. It's what knowing the playbook better allows him to do, which is play freer. I mean, he's playing at a speed off the line of scrimmage that we didn't see from him until November a year ago. And so I think a lot of people are going to look at the addition of Xavier Worthy, but for these first 2 months, it feels like an addition of Rashee Rice, because this isn't the Rashee Rice they had for the first 2 months of a year ago.
Yeah. What do they have in Xavier Worthy? We'll come back to Rashee Rice in a minute. What do they have in Xavier Worthy?
Look, I think he's what I thought he would be. And I agree with Sam. I mean, he looked great. He looked fast, but it was a busted coverage on a touchdown pass. And he ran a reverse where he literally had the whole team blocking for him on his way. It was like 7 guys blocking for him. So he touched the football 3 times. He scored twice, but he disappeared a lot. And so I think that's what his value is. Just, okay, run deep, make sure people are accounting for you, and the other guys will put work in. I will say this, that in some ways it's easier to play the way they played last night when you take one person out of the equation. I think when you bring Hollywood Brown back in, now it leads to, now you got to process faster. Now you got to figure out, okay, I don't know how the personnel packages are going to work out, but sometimes it felt like last night that Mahomes got so caught up in, I want to make this play deep. He got pressured pretty good at times when he was dropping back for the long developing stuff. And he got hit. He got sacked a couple of times. I think Suamataia got blamed for a sack that David Ajabo got, but it was because Mahomes his drop was so deep. He wanted to throw the ball down the field. So that will be interesting to see what happens when they mix all those guys in, because I feel like Rashee Rice really stood out, and it was clear he needs to get the football a lot. And if you're taking it away just to throw it to other guys, that may not be as great of an option as we think right now.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I know you talk about the sweep play where he had the whole line out in front of him. Part of that's play design. They sold hard. Yeah, it is. And they sold hard that Isaiah Pacheco was going to run to the left, right? They pulled Trey Smith, because we had my house. We went back and at halftime and said, let's go back and look at that. And Trey Smith pulls left and sells that it's a run to the left. And then everybody else on the second level, right? They didn't pull any guard or center. They went down the field to the second level, which on that play design, it requires a guy to be electric fast. Listen, they'll probably run it and somebody will blow it up in the backfield for a 5-yard loss, because they kind of count on sending a lot of people the other direction with the run fake to Pacheco. And then the line went down the field, but you had to be fast enough to beat the defenders that were not blocked, that were just allowed to come over there. So that play was designed with Xavier Worthy's speed in mind. Like, you're right, he did have a convoy in front of him, but if he doesn't have electric speed, that play doesn't work. You run that to Rashee Rice, I think he's brought down for a 3 or 4 yard gain. And so, that's
correct. McCole Hardman, though, right? McCole Hardman's running the same play and score.
Probably. I think we had that debate as well. Like, Is he fast enough? I think Hardman might be fast enough, right? I think Kadarius Toney would have tried to cut back somewhere and wouldn't have scored. But I mean, that's the combination
He would have dropped the football.
right? of play design with, and designing a play for the talents of Xavier Worthy and getting the most out of his explosion. That's why I think it's really exciting, Sam, if you're a Chiefs fan, because he's got these talents and skills, and that play was a perfect example of how Andy Reid knows how to get the most out of it.
Yeah, I agree with you, but it's why I'm most interested in seeing Xavier Worthy in week 2, because this was a Ravens team that I talked about on Tuesday, defended the deep pass better than anybody in the NFL last year. The Bengals were among the worst. And so can they execute that play? Can it become more than just the threat of Xavier Worthy downfield, but actually the execution of it? I mean, look, it was the 35-yard touchdown he had was, I think they only had one touchdown that came from outside the red zone a year ago, passing touchdown that came from outside the red zone a year ago. And so this gets put in that category, but this was not because of what the Chiefs did. The touchdown he had the receiving was because of what the Ravens did not do. Yeah. But in week 2, there's going to be more opportunity. And is a team going to say the only time that guy caught the ball, he caught the ball twice, one's on a drag route, one's on a busted coverage, we might not have to be as aware of him as the Ravens thought they needed to be, and then the opportunities open up for him in week 2. Yeah. But I do think he's got a different level of speed than McCole Hardman has, and I think McCole Hardman's fast. I just think Xavier Worthy gets to his top flight speed at a better rate than McCole Hardman did. And you guys know I thought McCole Hardman was underrated at the jet sweeps, but Hollywood Brown.
That's it. Here ended your underrated assessment of him. Right. Everything else, no, not
everything else, right? But I just think Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy can bring a different on-field playing speed, because they're actually threats when the ball's in the air in a way that McCole Hardman was not.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Again, we're brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Covering all the important things in your world, home, business, life, even the fun stuff like motorcycles, boats, ATVs, you name it, get with Dave, and he'll have you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Let's talk about Rashee Rice. Is he now the number one target, Jeff? I know we had explosive plays and a couple of touchdowns from Xavier Worthy, but time and time again, that slant and getting the ball. Some of the folks in the chat room talking about how they hit him in stride. Pat got him the ball, running up the field, and his run after the catch is pretty good. Did we see the passing of the baton? Is it official? He's the number one target for Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I think there's no question about it. There's a lot of reasons why Travis Kelce wasn't a factor last night. I know the Ravens wanted to beat him up at the line of scrimmage and make it hard for him to get into his routes, but really he only had the one big play that came off Mahomes improvising, escaping a sack and finding him downfield. What was a 23-yard catch he made. I just feel like there's a lot of upside right now with Rashee Rice. And he looks, I don't know if he's slimmer. I don't know if he's faster. I don't know if he's just playing faster, but it was apparent when he got the ball in his hands, he knew what he wanted to do with it. And Mahomes felt like he was going to make things happen quickly. And that's the kind of target you want to have in that intermediate range. And it's just, I specifically remember a throw they made to Travis, almost like a little screen pass type thing where they threw it out on Humphrey. Humphrey was covering him and it went for like 2 yards. Like he was down immediately. And it's just, he's still going to be effective in situations. And I imagine they're going to try to find a way to feed him to keep him feeling good about things. But yeah, I think it's apparent that Rashee Rice is going to be fed a lot this year.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think? Is he the number one guy, Sam?
Yeah, he is. But I think it's a product of learning the difference in a guy who really works at it in the offseason, who was there with Patrick Mahomes during the quote unquote Camp Mahomes, versus a guy like Kadarius Toney. I didn't think we'd mention Kadarius Toney twice in the first post-game podcast.
Is he still here?
But Brett Veach said after they cut Kadarius Toney, to a question from Adam Teicher of ESPN, he said if he cleans up the offseason stuff and gets his body right, that he thinks he can be a really productive player. I think Rashee Rice's example of when you do the work in the offseason to get on the same page with the quarterback, what happens? Because so many of those routes, when you look at like where Rashee Rice caught 5 of the first 6 catches, for example, it's between the hashes, not just between the numbers, but between the hashes. But the way that he got to those spots was different every time. And I just thought it was the like I said earlier, an example of a player who knows where he needs to be, and therefore he can be more creative in how he gets there. And it's a quarterback that trusts now that wide receiver is going to get there. The most impressive part of Rashee Rice's game a year ago, even when he didn't have that part picked up, the playbook aspect picked up, was he was really good after the catch. And so if you can combine those two things of him getting in the right spot on time, whatever way he wants to get there, and then really good after the catch. Last night he still led all players in that game in yards after the catch over the expectation. That includes Isaiah Likely, who had that ridiculous run on Nick Bolton and then beats Brian Cook at the goal line about the whatever it was, the 5-yard line or so, to get those extra 5 yards to get past the goal line. Rashee Rice still has the most yards after catch over expectation in that game. Those two things combined, it's why, Soren and I have talked about, like, Rashee Rice is a 1,200-yard receiver if he plays 17 games this year.
Yeah. But again, the point I'm making about Hollywood Brown, I want to go back to that because someone just mentioned him in the comments section, is that he's not great after the catch. That's not what he does. And so I'd rather be throwing the football to a guy who I know is going to break tackles and wants to contact, as opposed to somebody who's never been known for that. And so does Hollywood Brown become the guy who's running the clear out stuff when Xavier Worthy isn't there? Because they can't all be in the middle of the field. They can't all be Travis Kelce, Rashee Rice, and Hollywood Brown running the intermediate stuff. So how does this all fit together? Or maybe they're not going to be on the field together. Maybe that's how it all fits.
Well, I think that's a really good point, first of all. But I think Hollywood Brown eats up, the Justin Watson snaps last night, the Juju Smith-Schuster snaps too. Juju ran like 10 routes last night. Looks like Justin Watson ran 16 passing patterns last night. So, but you guys know where I am on this. Like, the Chiefs do have to have a finite role, I think, for these wide receivers to be at their most success. But we saw that more in this opening game than we saw in the opening night a year ago.
Yeah. With one less guy in the equation.
Yeah.
And it helped. And I think that's a little bit of Andy Reid learning the lessons from last year, that, hey, listen, I kind of contributed to why we sputtered along by trying to get all these different guys involved. It was a noble effort, but we didn't see a package for Sky Moore, right? And by the way, I love the stat. I think it was Casey Flatlander had Xavier Worthy now has more regular season touchdowns than Sky Moore career-wise, 2-1. Play the guys who can make the plays. Right?
Only if you include the playoffs.
Yeah. If you don't include the playoffs, is what you're saying. Yeah.
No, does he have one in the regular season?
Well, I don't know. I looked and I was just thinking in my head, is it just that Super Bowl touchdown? Is that the only one?
Right. He scored one like in Indianapolis somewhere along the lines a couple of years ago.
I thought he had one maybe his rookie year.
Or Jacksonville, he got one.
Yeah.
Somewhere he got.
Okay, he had one in 2023.
Pat says last year in the Jacksonville opener was when he got it. So it also says, did Sky Moore even play last night?
Does it matter?
Yeah, and Flatlander one in the regular season. He says, yeah. So we have confirmed it. What does it mean? 3 catches, Jeff, for Travis Kelce, right? 4 targets, 3 catches. Baltimore looked at what happened last year where he had 10 or 11 catches and 100+ yards and a touchdown, especially early in the game, really took it to him. They said, Travis Kelce's not beating us. And so they took that away. And that's part of why the other guys had a big day, or Travis Kelce starting to look old.
I think it's a little bit of both, but probably more so looking old. That it's a better matchup. It's advantage Ravens if it's Kyle Hamilton or Roquan Smith on a Kelce at this stage. And I think the Chiefs knew that. And again, I know the Ravens wanted to beat him up at the line of scrimmage. I was told that was a big part of what their game plan was going to be. But when you saw Rashee Rice working against those guys, I remember specifically a little whip route he put on Roquan Smith, where he just went one way and it came back and he was gone in like 2 seconds. Like, he just separated it like 5 yards and caught a pass and went about 15 yards with it. That's what's going to make the Chiefs more high end when it comes to efficiency and explosiveness. And Travis, again, he's going to be a factor. He's a great player, but it's harder to find those kinds of moments when you've got another guy who's going to be dominant in the middle of the field. Like for so long, he was the guy that was his space, and now you've got another guy who's going to be operating. Rashee Rice is not going to be running post patterns, in deep, deep outs. He's going to be working in that 10 to 15-yard area, and there's just too many bodies in there. No matter how you spread it out, how you formation it, end of the day, you've got to create space for one of those two guys, and that just feels like more of that's going to go towards Rice right now.
Yeah. Where is your concern level there with Travis Kelce, Sam?
Well, first of all, I think exactly what Jeff said, that we're seeing a little bit of a passing of the torch here of if the intent of a play is to create the opening over the middle of the field, that they want the ball in Rashee Rice's hands because of what I mentioned earlier, what he can do after the catch. The second aspect of this is Travis Kelce might not have a more difficult matchup all year than what he had last night against those two safeties and that linebacker. And what we saw was his most productive play is the connection between him and the quarterback. And those are the plays where Travis Kelce is still going to be effective. When teams play zone against the Chiefs and they need somebody to just find the opening, and now you have a more diverse group of receivers that other teams have to worry about to where they can't just double team Travis Kelce every time they play zone and bring the safety down as a robber to just double Travis Kelce. Those are the games where Travis Kelce is still going to eat. Like, he's still going to have his games where he's incredibly valuable to this team because he's learned these tricks over his career. But I mean, we talked about it over the summer. Like, Travis Kelce is not like nearing the age of when most tight ends see a decline. He's already blown right past it. Like at some point, we are going to see a decline in the statistics. But what we saw on the play where Patrick Mahomes scrambles is he still can bring value. Like, no matter the speed, no matter the bend he still has, no matter how quick and agile his feet are, he's still going to have value in the way he's got a connection with the quarterback. And I don't know if there's a quarterback in football where that connection is more important than this one.
Gann Asphalt and Concrete proudly serves the greater Kansas City area, proudly sponsors the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. They're nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems, they've been solving them since 1994, 30 years here in Kansas City. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot cuts down on those accidents, keeps your parking lot as safe as possible. You can find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Let's talk a little bit about the defensive side. We had the comment about Nick Bolton in coverage. I don't think anybody thought Nick Bolton was a great coverage linebacker. Give some credit to the Baltimore Ravens for one, creating the matchup.
I thought somebody did.
I think he's a very good line. I don't think he's great in coverage, but I think you for the most part, you should not, like, that's a gotcha moment. Like, the Ravens got Steve Spagnuolo. You shouldn't have Nick Bolton in that situation, right? Yes. And we'll see. Maybe, listen, if teams do that over and over again, then yeah, he's a problem. But I think it does speak to why he doesn't have a contract right now, right? I think that's, they gave Noah Gray a contract. And I think we could talk about that. Like, I think that's a bit of a sign that bye-bye Trey Smith, bye-bye Nick Bolton. Yeah. Like, if they got to that point, I think they probably tried with the other two and couldn't make that work. I mean, just as a sidebar, we'll get to the defense, but Jeff, do you agree that's what 3 for 18 for Noah Gray means? Is they probably gave it a look and don't think they can fit it with the other two guys?
Yeah, I think that's like, there's only so much money to go around and somebody's got to get it. And if you don't want to play ball with us, we'll find somebody who will take it. And so, I do agree with that. And look, I get Trey Smith not wanting to take a discount or trying to get what he can get, because in the open market, there's going to be a lot of money for him to be had. And Nick Bolton, last night was tough for him. And I'm surprised, again, the Ravens didn't find a way to take better advantage of that with Likely until later on. Going back to the point about the Chiefs, I think they were so consumed with, hey, how can we get Mark Andrews going? What can we do? And Mark Andrews is like, he was non-existent last night in that game. And so, it's the Chiefs defensively. I thought that they were able to get away with some stuff. I thought Watson would be exposed more at corner. I thought they would run the football more effectively. I think that the Bengals will pose a much different challenge to them offensively, just with the ability to go to both receivers. I think Jermaine Burton is a really good slot guy for them. Someone put up there that Joe Burrow never makes clutch throws. I don't know where that came from, because he's made a ton of clutch throws against this team. And
there was one of the stat guys put out a thing that all of his wins, like, in beating the Chiefs, it was the defense that was getting it done, and that he only had this many yards. I mean, there's somebody did a kind of a deep dive, And statistically speaking, they made a compelling case that maybe Joe Burrow's a little bit overrated.
Yeah, but when have you seen him miss a play like he should have made? That's what I'm saying. And maybe
I
you had the numbers.
I agree with you on that. I'm just telling you where I think the comment came.
Yeah. But no, I think there's a whole different challenge out there. And it's going to be tough because, you talk about Nick Bolton being in that position last night. It's because they don't have the depth. They can't. Who else is going to be in that position for them? They can't put Leo Chenal out there. There's only one Drew Tranquill. It's like you've got to play these guys, and they got to be on the field. So to Sam's point earlier, in the training camp preseason period, like they're going to miss some of the guys they had as far as depth goes this coming season.
Well, I think one guy you can put there. I mean, Nick Bolton played 100% of the snaps last night, and Drew Tranquill set out like 15 plays. And I think the Chiefs are going to have to be reevaluating whether or not in one linebacker sets, who is that one linebacker? Because, I mean, it's not Drew Tranquill's strength there, but I don't think it's the same weakness the Ravens attacked Nick Bolton last night when he was in coverage. And you can bet that the Bengals, who always kill the Chiefs with passing the ball to the running back, are going to attack whoever's that one linebacker in pass down sets. And so, I mean, but defensively, the one thing that the Chiefs did better was the cornerback too, that we talked all about. I mean, they didn't get exposed. Jalen Watson wasn't exposed. Joshua Williams wasn't exposed. We didn't talk a lot about those guys over the course of the game last night. We keep talking about the difference between week 1 and week 2. I mean, there's a drastic one there. I mean, Jeff mentioned they're not only good in the slot, but having two guys on the outside, like the Chiefs defense is going to have a very different, in a lot of ways, some ways tougher, some ways easier without the elusivity of Lamar Jackson, but a very different sort of test in week 2 compared to week 1.
It is a very different test, and I think we should point out on Nick Bolton that this is why the Ravens are good. It's the dilemma you face. Like, they're going to run the ball, so you want your thumper in there, right? Like, if he's not in there and Drew Tranquill's being dragged for 5 yards, everyone's going, where the hell is Nick Bolton? So this is why the Ravens are good. They've created a pick your poison. Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to go heavy and try to stop our big back, or do you want to go light and try to stop the passing part of things? So I don't know that a whole lot of teams have that ability to put the Chiefs over the kind of barrel that the Ravens were able to do last night. And I will point out again, Lamar Jackson, no, is not Patrick Mahomes, but he is a 2-time MVP. And if there were no Patrick Mahomes in this league, he would probably have a ring on his finger, and so would Joe Burrow, and probably so would Josh Allen. They probably each would have gotten one along the way. So it doesn't mean they suck. It just means Patrick Mahomes is better. And so there are problems that it creates. So Chris Jones, like, they look like they have a problem when Chris Jones isn't on the field. And they didn't really get a lot of rush, Jeff, even with Chris Jones there. Now, Lamar Jackson, most elusive quarterback in football. So let's take it with a grain of salt. Let's see what happens when Joe Burrow, who is eminently sackable. Like, it'll be a real night and day, because Burrow, for all the things he does well, he also takes a ton of sacks. They've tried to overhaul the offensive line in Cincinnati. It's massive, if nothing else. But, it'll be a little bit different. Should we 452 they put up? Is it Chris Jones and his band of merry men? Or is this defense more than what it looked like? And, hey, just tip your cap. The Ravens had a nice night.
I felt as Chris Jones obviously started the game on with his hair on fire. So you knew that he was going to be a problem for the Ravens, and they adjusted to that. They went to the quick game, and they tried to do more things on the perimeter to avoid that. But I was really surprised by how little rush they got when he wasn't in there, because it was the same offensive line. It was the same issues the Ravens had with that offensive line, and they really didn't have the same kind of success creating pressure against him. Now, again, that's Lamar really being Lamar, and they went more to the quarterback design run stuff, and he was scrambling more. He was more aware of the need to move around with the pressure that Jones had created. But, yeah, I am concerned when you start playing quarterbacks where the ball's coming out on time. And that's what was really obvious last night, was that Lamar is not the kind of still not the kind of quarterback who can throw on time consistently. And when you have, that's what Joe Burrow does well. That's what Josh Allen can do pretty well when he wants to do it. That's what C.J. Stroud can do, and Brock Purdy and some of these guys. So those kind of games I thought are going to create different challenges for the Chiefs, just because there was a lot of meat on the bone in the middle of the field, and the Ravens couldn't do anything with it.
Yeah. Where's your concern on the defense, Sam? Just Styles makes fights, and this was a bad matchup for him, or is this defense taking a big giant step backwards?
Well, I mean, you guys know, preseason I predicted that I didn't think this team would repeat as a top 10 yards defense because of the depth that Jeff mentioned earlier. Having said that, like, the Chiefs were in a way rushing 3 a lot last night. I mean, Leo Chenal was a quarterback spy on Lamar Jackson as a fourth rusher a lot. I thought Tershawn Wharton was in the backfield as frequently as I've seen him. Like, he's now 2 years removed from that ACL injury. If he can be a pass rush threat, that changes the Chiefs defense. Chris Jones was really, really active in the first half. Last play of the game, Justice Hill is blocking him on that play, one-on-one, by the way.
He was tired.
Yeah, I mean, you saw
you
saw a Chris Jones who insisted on rushing from the edge a lot in that second half. And I thought the Chiefs could have used him on the inside because Lamar Jackson's scrambles were beating him right up the gut. He wasn't getting around the edge. And I thought that if I was Steve Spagnuolo, I would have said at some point, Chris, I know you love rushing from the edge, but you've got to come from up the middle because that's what's killing us in this game. Karlaftis is a guy that we've all known is an effort sack player. Lamar Jackson is elusive. And so I don't know that he gets these coverage sacks against the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know that that's the best matchup that George Karlaftis is going to have, even knowing what the Ravens had on the offensive line, especially when Chris Jones is trying to pick on the new right tackles. That lines up Karlaftis with a more experienced left tackle. And there's a lot of explanations for why Chris Jones has a much better game than the rest of the defensive line, even beyond just the talent disparity between those.
Yeah, he did. They had him on Stanley a lot too, which I didn't. Why are you putting him best on best? I mean, it's noble, but like usually, Aaron Donald beat the hell out of Cam Irving one night because Cam Irving sucked and they wanted their best on the worst, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I was kind of puzzled how many times Chris Jones went up against Stanley, and because number one, I think he's better on the inside than he is the outside. I thought he looked a little bit rusty in the sense that a lot of, and I know he rushes kind of tall and he uses a lot of upper body strength and does those things, but he I don't know. I think he's a great player and I think he's so athletic that he does so many things, but I didn't think it was necessarily his best day, and he was by far the best player on the field. McDuffie was great. Listen, let me also point out the tackling of the defensive backs of the Kansas City Chiefs is maybe the most underrated part of their defense. They're badass when it comes to making tackles one-on-one in the open field. And, we forget that. We've become used to it, and everybody thinks, oh, you're right there, make the tackle. Tackling people is hard. It's hard, and they make it look pretty damn easy. But so I wanted to mention that. But Chris Jones, I don't know, player of the year? I mean, like if this defense does get back towards top 10, it's going to be because of him. Jeff, is he a legit candidate for defense?
Oh, he's definitely got a shot because you see how much he means to them and you see how many opportunities he has to make the splash plays. I mean, when you're playing in primetime games and you're blowing up offensive linemen, people remember that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I definitely feel like he's going to be I think Steven St. John was betting me or saying that he thought George Karlaftis would have more sacks than Chris Jones. I was like, there's no way. Chris Jones is going to be a double-digit sack. He's going to lead this team in sacks, and he's going to be a problem for a lot of teams.
Yeah. What do you think? Defensive player of the year candidate, Sam?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, when you have, first of all, I thought Chris Jones was better than last night than you gave him credit for. I mean, he did have 6 pressures in the game. He had another stop in the backfield beyond.
I said he was very good. I said he was the best defensive player. I just think he's capable of more. I thought he got a little tired and got a little bit high.
He got tired on the last drive of the game for certain, to the point to where I thought maybe the Chiefs could have subbed him out of the game on one of the plays that went out of bounds to Likely early in that drive just to give him a breather. But I mean, when you knock a ball loose and cause a turnover, like it's game over whether or not you had a good game as a defensive lineman. Like you've already had a positive impact on the game that's going to outweigh anything else. And look, I mean, in the end, that's what Chris Jones has been. He's been the flash player. Like he hasn't been the consistent run stopper. For example, we've constantly had conversations about, does Chris Jones have, does he reach his maximum potential on every single pass down snap, for example? Like he's always been this flash sort of player, and he made a couple of really strong, impactful flash plays last night. And when you talk about award stuff like Defensive Player of the Year, like that's always what people look at, and he's going to make those plays all year.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. We had a question in the comments about what is our schedule. Are we Tuesday, Friday now? That is the plan. It's a work in progress, right? We all do have a lot of things going on, but our plan is Tuesday nights. We'll be back at it on Tuesday night next week at 8:30 will be our time. And then if you want to catch us, it's 10 a.m. on Fridays. Kind of fits. We like the idea of kind of, most weeks reviewing and previewing and getting to all the topics you want to hear about here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. So thank you for that question. It's a good one. That is our plan. Don't forget, we're always brought to you by friends at David Starnes Allstate Insurance. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free with David Starnes Allstate Insurance. We're brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's best for more than 30 years. One contractor, all things parking lot. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. Our friends at Northland Injury Law, Google's 5-star rated personal injury lawyers serving KC for more than 40 years. Text HURT to 22222 if you have a case, and by our friends at Restore Hyper Wellness. Feel your best every day with Restore Hyper Wellness. Remember, first time IV therapy is just $99 when you mention Petro, my last name, Petro, and your first IV therapy is just $99. Embrace a healthier, happier you with Restore Hyper Wellness. For Jeffri Chadiha from the NFL Network and NFL.com, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, my name is Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.